All right. I hope you all had as much fun as I did with Momo's run of Nancy Drew. We're about to get into our final run of day one of RAF. Coming up, we have Requiem of Spirit running A Link to the Past All Dungeons RMG. And what better way to commemorate this run than with a beautiful Link to the Past poster by Isaiah C. Animation. You can check out what it looks like by typing !schedule in the chat. But just $20 gets you entered into the raffle, and you get to support Planned Parenthood in the process. And speaking of incentives, we also just hit the Va Meadow incentive. We hit that so fast. Good job, chat. Thanks to a $5 donation from Yedung Goof saying simply, Spirit is a nerd. So now we opened up a bid war for the Animal Crossing Wild World character gender. Definitely contribute to that throughout this run. And without further ado, I believe we have some dungeons to clear. So take it away, Spirit.
All right, thank you so much, Eshi. Hello, everyone. As she said, I'm going to be running All Dungeons RMG. RMG stands for Restricted Major Glitches. But before we get into, I guess what that means, I have two wonderful commentators here. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Hello, I'm Chex Human. I'm a runner of this game.
Hello, I'm Malmo, also a runner of this game.
Yeah, both of these people are really wonderful glitch category runners, and they definitely know more than me. So if I don't know something, I hope they'll correct me during the run. But yeah, I guess, why don't we get started before we start talking? So I'm going to give you guys a countdown. So let's go ahead in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Good luck.
Thank you. So if you have only played this game casually, or if you've only seen like an NMG speedrun, this is going to be a delight to watch. This game is incredibly broken. There's so many things to exploit, so much so that we need a restricted rule set to still keep things fun. And the restricted rule set is very much different from like the unrestricted major glitches rule set. The whole spirit of this rule set is to allow you to do whatever you want in the overworld. Walls don't exist in the overworld. You can clip through anything, anywhere, and do anything for the most part. Dungeons a bit more restrictive, but there are cool clips and sequence breaks that we'll showcase there as well. In the start, normally you'd want to finish Hyrule Castle and save Princess Zelda, but that takes a bit of time, so we're gonna skip that. Do you guys want to go into the whole sequence of tricks we'll be going while I focus for the first trick?
Sure, we have a jump, save, and quit coming up, which sort of, for anyone who knows anything about speedrunning this game, it's a simple way to explore the underworld. We're not going to do that. That's not allowed. But we are going to jump, save, and quit to do something called arming EG. So we're going to arm a glitch to get ready for later. And we're going to also do this wonderful trick here. Requiem is doing some very minute movements. It takes a series of one-frame movements. And
I'm gonna give this a couple more tries to see if I get it. This is cool to showcase.
Yeah, there's a much easier way to get this by walking into the castle and jumping off a ledge that doesn't have a rail in front of it. The idea behind this is you're storing a layer change that carries through a save and quit, and then you're activating that layer change outside in the overworld. I mean, you do that in the overworld, you don't get put in that out of bounds state that's banned, but instead you just go through sprites, which is not banned.
I'll give it one more college try and then make my walk of shame, I guess. Oh, okay, yes. Maybe one more.
Yeah, normally people would reset here, or they would just not do this at all.
Alright, we'll walk out. So that trick involves like 5 frame perfect inputs in a row, and I got 4 frame perfect inputs multiple times, but the 5th one was 2 frames, and if I got all 5 of them, I would be able to jump off and save and quit. But instead, we can just walk up here, do it the slow way. When done correctly, that can save upwards of 12 seconds. To this much easier one. But yeah, now we've armed EG with the jump, save, and quit. I'm not sure if you guys mentioned Lonk. I wasn't paying attention while I was...
Not quite yet.
We have not.
Okay.
So, to carry the state into the part of the castle where we activate it, we have to do a couple steps. One of them is to get hit by this guard exactly once into the doorway without getting nudged on the doorway. So, as you can see, he entered cleanly by setting up the guard to hit him from the right direction. If he had gotten hit anywhere before that or not gotten hit into the door, he would have to rearm EG. But he was successful, and that put him in a state where not only is he have that EG arm, but he also takes the right kind of damage from this zapper outside the castle that will knock him into the floor.
And so right now we're under the floor. We can walk under sprites and escape the castle. What that particular setup with the guard hitting me into the dungeon does is it makes the game think you're Bunny Link, and Bunny Link can't get zapped. And so when I touch the barrier, I don't get zapped. Instead, I take normal damage, and I'm able to fall through the floor. Up here, we're going to go through a couple more clips, and this helps us escape the beginning section. Because I transitioned midway through that screen there, it does this funny little auto walk, and that's what we actually call the trick. We call it funny auto walk thing.
And on
And
this
that is what it's
screen,
called, right?
on this screen, Requiem will perform an optional clip that saves up to like 8 seconds, 7 seconds maybe, over just walking there normally.
Yeah, this is a citrus clip.
And by jumping that way, we wrap the screen, make the game think we're on the top, and with a little bit of walking, we're finally in Eastern Palace.
Nice.
This is the first dungeon of our game, first dungeon we're going to beat, and it's the first dungeon for most RMG categories. Most RMG categories these days don't do escape first, instead we come here, simply because it's much faster. Later we're going to collect a couple of items and go back to escape, because we need to rescue Princess Zelda. Hyrule Castle counts as a dungeon, but not right now. We can save a lot more time with more items.
Yeah, particularly the mirror, which will let us skip half of escape. That's why we want to get out of there.
Yeah, the boots will also just make Link faster going through the escape. Now, there's a little bit that gets done before the escape, including another dungeon dip, which we'll get into when it happens.
So this is mostly NMG, and so while we have a little bit of downtime here, it's I wanted to talk a little bit about this route a bit more. We will go into the specifics later, as Malmo mentioned, but this is the first time this specific route is being, I guess, showcased in any kind of marathon setting. And that's because this route has a very difficult trick that until recently was deemed not marathon safe, because you had basically one try to get it done. There's been some reroutes that make it slightly slower, but still fast enough to where it's an actual route that can contend with very top times and still be showcased in a marathon.
And
Is that there?
yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
I love how accessible this route is. Before we had a league of this category, I didn't think people would be doing basement clip, but we had it in league, and so it's raceable.
Yeah, there was so many people doing this route in races. We had like a small mini tournament that we call League that happened a couple months ago. So it was pretty cool to see so many people doing it. Races of this category in general usually end in disasters. There's so many different hard locks, soft locks in this run that we'll see at the end of the run once I'm done. And a lot of them lose a ton of time. And as with most games, unintentional deaths can also cost a ton of time. So all in all, fun to grind for personal best, not fun to race.
Yeah, you can even see that if you're familiar with a no major glitches run, you would normally have 4 hearts in this dungeon, and here you have 3. Even that small amount of health loss can cause you to lose a run in a place where you normally wouldn't have to worry in NMG.
Here's the boss of the dungeon, Armos Knights. Well done, Requiem.
It's important that Requiem finishes with enough arrows to do a trick later on. I believe you need 6 arrows to do a trick in a later dungeon, and you don't really have good chances to collect arrows that aren't super slow until then, so getting out of Eastern with 8 is good to see.
Alright, who wants to explain why I lamp 3 times and over-explain Ancilla for the one trick we use it for?
Almo does.
Okay, well, this trick I alluded to is called fake flippers, or specifically splash deletion fake flippers. And the reason we're doing that is because we want to collect the hook shot early in Swamp Palace, which is a dungeon normally requiring you to swim with the flippers. But we're going to enter Swamp Palace from another dungeon by clipping through a diagonal wall, and then overload the screen with sprites that Link creates. And one of those sprites that Link creates is the splash when you jump in the water. And if the game doesn't see that splash, then the game will just let you swim. But lamping 3 times sets up a variable to ensure that the splash actually doesn't spawn. Because if the variable is wrong, the splash will just replace one of the things you put on screen. So we'll worry about that later.
Yeah, because we beat Armos, like, one of the things we do is spamming arrows, and that sets that particular variable to an undesirable value. That's usually not known. You could probably look at the screen and, like, tell what your value is and adjust accordingly, but it's so much easier to just use the lamp to set that index to a high value and then do a very specific set of arrows into a wall to set it to the value we need. Coming up here, we're going to skip the requirement for a glove and enter Death Mountain early.
This is a great relief to the old mountain man who's lost here.
You'll notice that it's still raining. We haven't saved Zelda yet, so that rain's not gonna be there for a while. But this old man, though, he's really important. He gives us a really cool item.
Yeah, the old man gets to gloat about how he got rescued first.
Heads up here, there is going to be some amount of minor flashing light, so do look away if that bothers you. I'll let you know when to look back again.
The
rain spray. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the rain produces these overlay effects that get a little bit corrupted on screens where you're not supposed to be. It's also the sprites that are normally in the overworld are not in the light world until you've rescued Zelda. That's why there are no enemies on the mountain or no enemies in the overworld. So this clip is just another one of the screen wraps that will allow him to enter a cave on Death Mountain that conveniently has a diagonal wall in it, and as you've probably guessed by now, we love diagonal walls.
Nice Kiki skip.
And just like that, we're in Palace of Darkness. I guess now's a good time to mention, this is going to be the first of many visits to Palace of Darkness. And that's because of basically what this route does is it steals the big key from this dungeon. The big key is used to open the big chest, which contains the hammer, and it also is used to open the boss door. That is kind of a problem. Because we open this in cave state, we effectively lose the ability to have the Palace of Darkness big key. And so if we ever come back and reload Palace of Darkness, like as the actual dungeon, we won't be able to open that door. That is fine though. By collecting the big key in cave state, it also gives you the big keys of multiple other dungeons, including Escape, doesn't save too much time, Desert saves a lot of time, you skip the whole front half of Desert, and Tower of Hera, which skips the whole basement. And so all in all, this saves like close to a minute, or even over a minute, over the previous route we had. But because we have to open the door somehow, we're going to be coming back later, making another visit in cave state. We're paying our tax to open the door, and then we'll finally make a third visit to beat the dungeon. You might hear that and think, wow, that sounds super slow. Well, it turns out it's actually not that slow compared to the world record route, which has to get a bottle and a potion to do the same thing.
Yo, nice stop.
It's a really good hammer jump. It's a no major glitches trick that it's actually a little bit easier in this category because of the lack of sprites and the lack of falling bridge. He's able to dash on grid to stop on the right pixel more easily. The world record route would normally continue on through Cave State Pod and open the door on the same trip. And then an older route would normally have fixed the dungeon state and done the whole thing in pod state as like a normal dungeon with some slight differences to speed it up.
Oh yeah, the dash.
Yeah, people should do that dash. That dash is pretty fast. And by pretty fast, I mean it saves like single-digit frames.
That dash is pretty cursed. Don't listen to Requiem.
Yeah,
There are more fun ways to save single-digit frames.
Yeah, now it's time for hammer escape.
Hammer and boots makes escape so much more fun. And don't forget the mirror. The mirror is going to come in handy later. But yeah, dashing through all these screens where you'd normally be walking, such a relief. And having the hammer to one-shot all of these enemies also makes this super easy, rather than having to charge spins or do something special.
Requiem is about to collect an item that's only used once in the run, and still manages to save time.
Yeah, we could skip that item, but it turns out across the 2 uses, or 1 or 2 uses that it has, it actually saves time over skipping it.
It also makes the
You can
menuing
do either
nicer.
1 or 2 snacks.
We have to do this.
Sure.
That is true, yeah.
Anyone who's
Yeah.
done a
Oh,
category
yeah.
that delays collecting
Well,
the boomerang knows
here,
how
I was
annoying
gonna say,
the
this-
menu
this
is, and you
part's
don't
a
have that
little
item to
strange.
menu through.
Yeah.
We have.
Yeah.
Requiem's
this
going to
part,
use
and
the
then,
Cave State Big Key. It's not really the Cave State Big Key, it actually does give him these keys, but that Ball and Chain Guard normally drops a big key that opens the cell, and he gets to open it for free because the Cave State Big Key wrote that key into his inventory when he collected it.
Now we're gonna save and quit, and when we use the mirror, game doesn't know where to put us, so it just puts us in Sanctuary. And we're done with Escape. Alright, if you have played A Link to the Past in a speedrun setting, you'll know that this text is normally very laggy. It's not for me because I'm playing on a superior console called the SNES Classic, which saves like 100 frames on just this cutscene alone, which is crazy. More people should run on this console.
It's crazy we allow it, and yeah, it's an official Nintendo release.
It is the fact that it's an official console makes it kind of hard to ban, but also I think it loses time in other ways, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
It
normally
gains time.
grab. You can save those frames by like grabbing an object in the room and despawning Link's shield.
Yeah, the classic runs at 60 frames per second even, right? And that's
Yeah.
different than the SNES's 60.09 frames per second, I believe.
The Tower of Hera is a pretty important dungeon in this run because it's where we collect the hook shot. We're actually not going to beat the boss just yet. You might be wondering why Requiem collected that small key if he doesn't need to open the Hera basement door. He'll actually be spending that key in Swamp Palace.
Yeah. Spoilers, we're going there for the hookshot.
That's right.
If you were
and
paying attention at the beginning, I did, Link looked like he was just kicking up dust and then hovering through a wall. The game, diagonal walls in the overworld are very free to clip through by just pressing a direction and the boots in the same frame. You can just clip through all diagonal walls. And by doing that, we screen wrap and go to the top, enter Hera for really fast without having to climb the mountain.
This clip is a little bit more involved. Requiem will do some sword buffered movements and then dash a little bit into the wall, which puts him on a pixel that does a teleport. And a teleport is when you are inside of a diagonal wall on a particular pixel. The game will try to kick you out of the wall, and sometimes the math will be a little bit wrong and it'll kick you out in the wrong direction. And we take advantage of that to get kicked very far upward or very far downward. And this is that fake flippers we're talking about. He's overloading the screen with objects that Link produces so that the splash doesn't appear. And that puts him in a position to very quickly clip through that rail.
Nice.
That was something we
Let's go.
discovered recently, that if Link tries his best and swims hard enough, he swims so far that he just goes straight through the rail. It's pretty crazy.
That happened so fast I couldn't even parse what was going on.
Alright, I normally don't farm for health here, but 5 hearts, Thieves Town, I'll try it. Oh, there's one. That's good enough. Oh, there's another. There we go. Yeah, so the next 2 splits, we're going to complete 2 more dungeons. And these dungeons are pretty scary. I'm pretty comfortable with 3 Heart Thieves Town, but after that is Skullwoods, and I am still scared of that split. In either case, both of these dungeons are very hard. You're meant to have more hearts, a better sword, much better inventory, but we're just doing this now because it's just faster to do now.
That clip going down the mountain is one of the first places where you can completely screw up the game. You can hard lock your run if you do it wrong and have to redo the Tower of Hera split.
So more game trivia. We can do a lot of the glitches on the versions after Japanese 1.0, but Japanese 1.0 is the best, especially for minor glitches. And that includes the fake flippers we saw performed by placing the bombs and arrows. In the US version and later, Link would just get stuck in the water.
You also can't lonk so you can't do that opener in the US version.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can't get spin speed. You can do other things that aren't spin speed to clip through walls, but it's really helpful to have spin speed because it's usually the fastest way.
Yep.
Scary RNG from these enemies, but has not gotten hit. This room, we call it Hellway because the
This is
RNG can
wonderful.
screw you. So he actually did that
That
correctly
was
and just got screwed by the second enemy halfway up the screen.
yeah.
By the way, is
It's
now
like-
a good time to jump in?
Oh yeah, you can go ahead.
Cool. I have a $20 donation from Coco saying, yeah, link to the pass. Let's go. Requiem of Spirit. Yeah. And with that $20 donation did qualify for the raffle for the link to the pass poster. Again, you can see that in the schedule command. Definitely check that out. And we also got $5 from MZ saying, let's go speedrunning. Thank you so much for the donations.
So most of this dungeon is pretty similar to what you would see in a no major glitches speedrun. With the only difference that we don't have the power glove. So I'm just gonna get rid of this guy and avoid that guy. Those guys hurt.
Yeah.
You're getting the
Um,
worst RNG in every room.
Yeah, normally you'd use the power glove in this room to lift that block and dash down, but we can't do that, so we're gonna have to clear all of these enemies. Oh, that's not gonna
It
work.
was
There we
always
go.
a good bonus.
The arrow routing and bomb routing for this run is pretty tight, so I'm going to be paying close attention to what my arrow and bomb counts are. Know what to pick up when. Should be fine. It's a little scary.
So this is also the dungeon where you get your first glove and your last glove. There's normally a power glove in Desert Palace, but we haven't even been there yet. And that would only downgrade the Titan's mitt that's in this chest. The mitt is only required for one dungeon, Ice Palace, but it will also be used to pick up the Tempered Sword after this dungeon is complete.
Oh, and I kind of need that. Coming up here, we have boss of this dungeon, which, don't listen to what anyone says, it's not a scripted fight, it's actually pure RNG, and I am very scared.
Now I'm scared all of a sudden. Blind only takes 9 hits. That much I know. And it doesn't matter what
Yep.
weapon you use.
Yeah, which is why it's perfectly fine coming here with the fighter sword. Doesn't matter what you use, it's always going to be 9 hits. The fight is scripted. If you do the exact same inputs every time, you'll get the same fights. If you do die in the fight, though, then Blind doesn't start in the same position. He starts as soon as you enter the room again, and that fight becomes much harder. So it's always scary to die in that fight. But yeah, we got through it. So that's our third dungeon, I believe. We're gonna go through. Now that we're done with our early game collection quests of getting like the hammer and hookshot, we're gonna go through clear a whole bunch of dungeons.
Normally in the No
Well-
Major Glitches run, after you complete this dungeon, you'll go south and open up a hut that has 300 rupees in it. The route that we're doing actually lets us skip those because there are rupees in the pod basement, which we'll be visiting later. And that saves at least 10 seconds. It saves a lot of time not getting those.
I believe it's 19 seconds.
Oh, that's a lot. Requiem did need to collect 10 rupees to pay the smith. And he is 27, so he's good.
We missed a hard lock
Correct.
opportunity.
We did. There's going to be, in the Hardlock Showcase, I'll show a different way to do this screen of collecting the Smith and collecting the book, which has a chance to hardlock. It's a very interesting hardlock. I actually don't know how it works, so maybe if you guys know, you can explain when that gets shown.
I don't know how it works either. But
Yeah,
it's-
I would
it's-
like to know the science.
I think it's frame perfect.
I think you're
It
right.
is imperfect, yeah. When I was learning that method, I didn't know there was a hardlock opportunity, so I'd mash the button that could cause the hardlock. And
That's right.
when I'd hardlock, I would be like, why is this happening?
This is true. A lot of runners aren't told not to mash there because it seems like, well, you just hit it at some time. There's no consequence to hitting it at the wrong time, so... Once you stop matching, it becomes very unlikely that you'll actually hardlock there. The smith charges you 10 rupees to temper your sword, which is usually not a problem, but in this route you don't get any rupees from chests until after the smith. So Requiem had to route in some drops to make sure that he could pay the smith. There are some backup chests that you can get that do have rupees in them if you don't get the drops you need.
It's also not a problem that we don't have the Master Sword to temper. The smiths will temper anything, even no sword.
You can just give them 10 rupees, and they'll give the tempered sword to you. Nobody knows what happens to the sword that you give them. Alright, we do need to collect these rupees, though. We're collecting more money to pay King Zora for our flippers, because we do eventually actually need flippers to beat Swamp Palace.
You can only skip the first 2 waterways in Swamp, and the third one that has the moving water cannot be skipped.
Yeah, that's pretty unfortunate. Alright, now we have Skullwoods. Skullwoods on 6 hearts is pretty daunting, and I think some runners would be more scared of 3 Heart Thieves Town. I am way more scared of 6 Hearts Skullwoods. This dungeon is terrifying, and the final boss of this dungeon is also very hard.
It's not scripted. Also, nice mummy. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
The mummy's
just
trying to push in the other direction.
Usually they slip off, but that one was well centered.
Yeah, I was scared that he would slip off to the top, and I'd have the bottom guy attack me from the bottom. But thankfully, they both cooperated. Nice menu.
Nice menuing. It's an interesting spot to use the menu buffer.
Yeah, I like to read that guy's RNG, make sure he doesn't get in my way.
Part of the reason that 6 Heart Skullwoods is so scary is because you take 2 heart damage intentionally. And you can take extra damage here if you get hit by the Moldorm. It looks like we are sacrificing a small amount of time for marathon safety by mirroring out.
Mirroring out loses like 1.5 seconds in total to just dropping down the hole and using the iframes to get past that enemy, but I'm willing to keep the 5 hearts. 5 hearts is pretty nice.
Mothula damages you for 2 hearts, so having an odd number of hearts going into the fight is a big boost over having an even number. Like going from 3 to 4 doesn't matter that much, but going from 4 to 5 matters a lot.
Alright, coming up on the back half of Skullwoods here, just a couple of rooms that are pretty similar to what you'd see in NMG. Except you don't have a menu to give at the end, so on the final room where you'd usually use a menu to make things easier, it's a little bit harder.
Good Joe Mumway.
That Helma really wants to be your friend, but sorry Helma, not today.
Time for Mothula. If we start with a double poke, we can deal half of the boss's health right away. Nice fight. It got toward the bottom of the screen, but you were able to kill it still.
A little out of hand, but thankfully no major disasters, so that's happy. You can usually tell how good / bad the fight goes by how many spikes are missing. The best fights have 0 spikes missing, and those fights, the Mothula, the boss, and the conveyor cooperate. We got down conveyor this time, so that's usually not good because it keeps you away from the boss, making it a bit harder. Don't let people in chat fool you. 4 spikes isn't bad.
So the next dungeon is Tower of Hera. We didn't actually kill Moldorm when Requiem was there. So Requiem will very quickly do Tower of Hera using a glitch called Hera Pot, taking advantage of the hook shot to clip into a pot that would normally put you in a fairy room if you fall in from the very top of the tower, but you can clip into the bottom pot and get there too, and it warps you to the top. Requiem will kill Moldorm with a hammer, or the tempered sword actually, which is way faster than fighter sword, and then collect the ether medallion.
And the scouting works out pretty well too. We need to do Mire next, and we need the ether medallion for that. There's no way to enter Mire without the ether medallion. And the ether medallion is right here, so we just collect it on our way out. That's really fast. That was nice.
Yeah.
When you have super speed like that and moving from a specific position diagonally, Link clips just a single pixel into that pot there, so you can hookshot the other side and just walk in. And we're at the boss. This is one of the shortest splits in the game. Oh, he's being annoying. Help.
So this will just take one tempered slash and one tempered spin. And Moldorm's down.
Both this Moldorm and the Moldorm in the lobby can be annoying. This one was a little annoying. Thankfully, the Moldorm in the lobby just decided to peace out. Wasn't in our way. Alright, now we need to collect Ether and then go to Mire. You might be thinking, Mire is on the opposite side of the map. How do we get there? Well, this is going to be fun.
I bet you can do it in one single transition.
Maybe.
Well, it's not exactly one,
Hopefully.
but we do get to the bottom part of the map in one. And yeah, so we saw this kind of technique earlier, like when Link went to Hyrule Castle from Sanctuary. But here we go. So we see Link wrap the screen. Link's coordinates will continue moving down as Link goes down, even though we've wrapped this particular screen. So now we're gonna keep wrapping. And this is
One more. Good luck.
super drop. Yep, this is the second jump.
And now we're at the very bottom of the map. And one more transition, and we're in the Mire screen.
So we do
There's
have
so much you can do in this overworld. So much you can break open.
We have unusual layering, an unusual layer graphic here, but it's not as bad as when you approach directly from the overworld. Instead, we approach from Death Mountain, which I guess gives it sort of a square rain effect. Nice scroll. The
Unfortunately,
slow
it was a
scroll, not the
scroll.
fast scroll.
Yeah, by moving just before you activate Ether, you'll cause the camera to try to fix itself by scrolling all the way down. It doesn't make it, but it actually does speed things up.
The fastest scroll saves 12 frames, I believe.
Yeah.
And Misery Mire is pretty similar to NMG. It's an interesting dash line. Looks like it controls some of the top Fire Snake RNG.
Mhm. You can read the top 5 stick RNG so you don't take damage. 8 Hearts Misery Mire is another dungeon that's a little questionable. I believe in NMG is it 11 hearts that you come here with? Is it 12? You have a lot more health in NMG.
And you still have to take the intentional 3 hearts of damage, so you go down to 5 hearts, and then you get another one on the way back. We might even see an intentional farm to hope to get 2 hearts, because having 5 hearts, you can still do the Vitreous fight with 5 hearts, but it's way more dangerous. 6 hearts is a lot safer, and you can do the fight more or less normally, but you have to do it correctly or else you will die.
And we are able to shoot fire rods across moving blocks, in case that wasn't clear. And we can move the wall on the other side of the store.
One of the few places of downtime in this game. There's very few places where there's nothing to do, like no tech smashing, nothing. It's like one of the 2 places in the NMG speedrun. I think this is the only place in this speedrun.
No, there's
you have,
desert wall.
Oh, I guess,
right?
yeah. A little bit of a shorter break, yeah.
I think you might be spoiling that you might not be doing the pod wall, is that right?
Oh yeah, that's true. I guess when we go to beat Palace of Darkness, you might not see the dungeon beaten in the normal way.
I know I'm excited. Everything has looked normal so far.
So
This is
NMG would normally take an intentional damage boost through the spark at the bottom of the screen, but intentional damage boosts when you're on this low health are probably not going to save you any time.
Yeah, here we're coming up on the place where we need to intentionally take 3 hearts of damage to get a key. This is the fastest key you can get. and it just means we have to pay 3 hearts for our troubles. There is another key you can get on the main screen, and some RMG tricks you can do to speed that up. But it still is pretty slow. Try to slash the Wizard Rope there for extra health, I don't get it, but 6 hearts is still fine, so long as I don't take any more damage.
So why are we throwing a block into the pit?
Well, we're setting the altitude of that block, of course. And that variable is shared by the fire rod. So we're able to use tricks with the fire rod, and then in the upcoming rooms where the splash damage hits crystal switches that are behind walls, basically. So we can take shortcuts here.
Hope I get it. Nice.
And that's called spooky action.
Yeah, that fire rod shot hitting the anti-fairy at the very bottom displaced the fire rod splash damage to the top of the screen where there's a switch out of sight. And that helps us save a bomb and a lot of time. Alright, coming up on the Vitreous fight. This fight's pretty complex, but mostly similar to NMG. Take a lot of damage to get these spins off. And that's all the eyes.
Perfectly executed. If you do it right, Vitreous Big Eye does not zap you. We call that a 0 cycle. I'm wondering, are you trying to conserve arrows for a later dungeon?
I'm not, but usually if I finish firing arrows and I face down, I go back to NMG Brain where you have the mirror already, so I try not to press the Y button and I just slash him. In NMG, you menu to mirror there, or some people do, and some people swear against it. And if you press the Y button before the boss is dead, you will warp back to the beginning. There's a hilarious clip of one of our top runners doing that, and since then we have like a very passionate movement against menuing to mirror.
There's one runner who is passionate about not menuing to mirror in there. Most people still do it. But you don't do it in this run because, well, you do use the mirror. You could do it in this run.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
Well, that is true.
There's no purpose for equipping it early because we don't use it as soon as possible. We use it here.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
You're not saving human error frames.
Yeah.
Our next stop is Desert Palace, and because we already have the big key that the Cave State big key wrote into our inventory, we can just go straight to the boss. We don't have to deal with the beginning of Desert, and that's the last place where Cave State big key will save us time. Overall, our total time save is pretty enormous right now, but we have to pay some of it back. And that's going to come up next split.
Nice beam strat. You don't normally have beams in this room.
Now, Lanmo is usually notorious for being one of the most difficult bosses in the game, but that's only if you're using the bow. Now that we have the fire rod, it makes the boss fight a lot easier. With enough control, it should be just 1 cycle, maybe 2 cycles if things get out of control.
Very similar to the one at the top of GT. So NMG runners will usually already know how to do this. They're just not used to doing it in this room. Requiem will also menu to bombs while the pendant is falling. The reason he does it here is because the pendant will continue to fall while he's in the menu, and the menu is free if you do it here.
Cryptid. No, nice fight.
Thank you. Alright, we're coming up on probably the hardest split in this game. We have probably the most anxiety-inducing screen coming up right now, and then a really hard trick later.
Okay. This is a map wrap to get to Ice Rod, and we need to make sure not to move to the right at all. And we're safe.
Yes, and that includes getting nudged to the right, so if Requiem had overshot that cave, he would have to save and quit. Because if he tried to enter the cave, it would nudge him backwards and hardlock his game.
And that hardlock loses a lot of time. It loses all of my progress from Misery Mire and Deserts, which I would rather not do.
And Hera. And Ether.
Yeah.
So everything,
and Hera,
everything after killing Mothula would be lost.
Solid 8 minutes at least. maybe more, probably more.
This is the second of 3 Kiki skips.
Yeah, so this is where we're paying our tax. We have sinned by collecting the cave state big key, and we need to repent. And we repent by going to the back of this dungeon in cave state to open the big key door. Now, the trick to do that is really complicated. It is the hardest trick in this run. Historically it involved like 20 or so frame perfect inputs in a row. There's an easier method now that cuts out a bunch of those buffers, but it still is very difficult. You might think, why can't you just go to the back of the dungeon normally? And the answer is, because we wrapped the underworld map while getting here, none of the sprites are spawned. So there's a statue at the back that you have to shoot, and that opens up a cutscene, that opens up a wall, letting you get to the basement. That sprite doesn't exist, so we have to come to the basement and clip in.
Even if it did exist, there's also a crystal switch in the basement whose pegs are in the wrong orientation, so if you were to enter, you would get blocked and not be able to hit a switch, because the switch wouldn't be there. So this trick starts by getting spin speed in the spiral stairs, using the Samaria block to stop Link from actually taking the stair transition, but he has to do it in a way where the Samaria block despawns. And once he has spin speed, this is happening too fast, but once he has spin speed, he has to do a bunch of little clips through this rail. He actually did a lot of adjustments on after getting popped up, which would normally end the trick, but he was able to adjust and get back on track. And the final step is placing a bomb, moving 1 pixel to the right, and then the bomb knocks you into the rail so that he can dash into the rail and open the door. Very nicely done.
Yeah, that was pretty
GG
fast.
also to Malmo for keeping up with that one.
I did not keep up with it, but thank you. We'll get to see it again, hopefully. We're going to take a detour into Turtle Rock. The reason we're doing Turtle Rock in between is because it fills your magic for free, saving some refill frames and giving Requiem a little bit more leeway on doing the trick again, if he so chooses. Now, if he were to go back in for the 3rd pod trip, he could do the dungeon normally, now that the big key door is open, but he could also save a little bit of time by doing the clip again, because it is faster.
Little bit of movement there to teleport down and get to this transition. We're trying to mirror and transition on the same frame. I didn't hit that, but thankfully we can try again immediately. There we go. And then by transitioning right, we activate a screen scroll that does resolve. It's not a hard lock, and lo and behold, we are at the back of Turtle Rock.
This is the first of 2 mirror wraps in the speedrun. It's like Requiem was doing a dash up that puts you on the laser skip pixel. He had to adjust up because he canceled a little bit too low. Turtle Rock is a lot easier coming from the back. Very nice dash around the mini helmet. Something I've been advocating people do. You can usually just dash through or around it rather than slash it. But this room is a lot easier. You just hold up.
Yeah, I chose to wait there a bit so the fire bar doesn't take 1 health away from me. I'd like to be above 4 hearts. Just in case.
There's an enemy in this game that Requiem will be killing for a small key, and it does 4 hearts of damage. In this particular route, if you do it and take the damage, the intentional damage will always put you at 4 hearts in that room. It's really easy to die. So having 5 hearts makes a huge difference. It's worth the 30 frames or so that you would spend waiting for the fire bar to not hit you. This room, you have to be careful that top right pokey goes upright. You have to move around it.
It's a nice
We
place
do
to
need
buffer
the-
to the mirror to re-RNG.
We do need to collect the big key, and that's what this whole loop around is for. Otherwise, we can't get to the boss. And this is a very friendly RNG.
Yep. Even gets a fairy, which is not necessary, but very comforting to have. It's
Nice
not the
dash dust to eliminate the frames from the poof from Bunny back to Link form. True blue frames.
and Trinex it's really just NMG.
Yeah, because we enter through the back, the moment we get the big key, we can mirror out, so we save a ton of time doing this dungeon, starting at the back door.
You also skip one of the worst rooms in the game, which is the Chain Chomps room.
That
Don't
is
have
so
to-
true.
Don't have to touch it at all. Unless you mess up your small keys.
Ooh.
I was worried that that hit wouldn't count, but it did.
Yeah, that was really close to his main body. That's just slow wrong. I
Yeah.
like being able to tell when he's fighting, when he's like coming my way.
I was gonna
if you
say
play randomizers. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, if you play randomizers, especially if you're familiar with the new version, the lag is essentially eliminated in that fight. So the speed at which the second phase occurs is much greater and puts you at greater risk. So yeah, the positioning's different from between rando and vanilla.
Yeah, every time I watch Rando, I get jump scared by that guy. Makes me scared for whenever I go back to Rando.
Is now a good time to jump in?
Yo, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, as we enter the second half of this run, I did want to remind everyone that this is going to be your last chance to enter into the raffle for the Link to the Past poster by Isaiah C. Animation. So if you're interested in that, this is your last chance, $20 raffle. Definitely donate for that. And also, again, the Wild World gender selection is open, the bid war. So you can donate for that as well. I think you can donate for both at the same time. So you can have a donation count for two things. You can have your voice heard for that. All donations are going towards Planned Parenthood. We would really appreciate the support.
So Requiem attempted a trick called Louis Hop, which jumps straight from the stairs on through the railing and into the water. But if you miss, there's a backup. You just spin speed or hook speed clip through the railing. And the screen below this is the screen below the Zora screen. The overworld map is laid out a little bit strangely with regard to some of these special screens, like the Zora screen.
Yeah, this is just a little bit of a... Because the flippers are right there, we just want to collect it. But our next destination is Palace of Darkness again. We're finally going to beat it on our third trip.
Third tries the charm.
So you're going to see the same screen wrap again, the same clip to get back in the dungeon. But this time, we're going to reload the dungeon and actually beat it. Third Kiki skip attempt. We call this Kiki skip because you need to usually pay Kiki the monkey. But we don't do that. We don't have $100 to spare. I'm sorry, Kiki.
Ignore the fact that we bypassed two chests with 50 rupees each while we were on that screen in Saha's closet. But yeah,
Right.
that's irrelevant in this run.
So Requiem is mirroring here. There's a thing called Pendant Crystal Conflict, where if you've collected pendants from the Lightworld dungeons, there are certain crystal dungeons, Darkworld dungeons, that will detect that you already have the prize if you're still in the Lightworld. So he had to mirror to get into the proper Darkworld to ensure that the crystal falls when he beats this dungeon. That's one of those places where you can hard lock your game if you forget to do that. Ooh.
Nice.
Nice. Normally you don't kill that enemy when you dash through it, and you have to kill it with the Cane of Samaria.
Yeah, it's interesting to use the pause buffer and see that it changes colors, which means that it's taking damage.
So you have another chance to explain basement clip if that wasn't fast enough. This one's a little harder because there's enemies. Those turtles can mess you up. So Requiem's going to linger on the top of the screen a little bit to manipulate them to ensure that they don't get in his way. The first part of the basement clip is a teleport, similar to the one that got him into Swamp to get hookshot. The teleport will send him upward into the rail, and then he will cancel the hook speed and start using the Samaria to arrest his movement to ensure that he doesn't clip out of the rail, and do some buffered movements.
Nice.
Very nicely done. This is a very hard trick. You can slow down if you're not as skilled as Requiem. You can use select buffers and still save time, at least on the first one. On the second one, you're probably not saving time unless you're doing the trick that quickly over just doing the dungeon normally. Now, this boss is one of the places where you die often in the original run. It's a little safer because you have Tempered Sword and don't have to hit him with the hammer that's, reduced hitbox, but you still go in with 5 hearts, so it's still a little bit dangerous.
Nice fight. There's a lot of
Yeah.
RNG in that fight where Helma walks, whether he shoots fireballs, and everything does 2 hearts of damage. So it's
Yeah, it is a
even with
pretty
11
scary
hearts, it's
fight.
a little scary.
It didn't help that, like, the beginning dungeons, sure, we didn't have much max health, so we go in with low health. But these later dungeons, because we go into them after a save and quit, we don't start with full health after save and quit. So a lot of the later dungeons, we're still going into them with, like, 6 hearts or 7 hearts, making it still pretty hard. But yeah, basement clip is the hardest trick. It is, like, probably the biggest run killer, because most of the initial sets of inputs are all frame perfect, so it's really hard to hit them. I'm basically hitting a input and then or a direction and then stopping my movement with another input 1 frame later. And this game runs at 60 FPS, so that's pretty hard to get the rhythm for. Another issue is that some of those inputs are like same frame diagonals, which is traditionally pretty hard to hit on a SNES controller. My controller has very, very mushy diagonals though, so it makes it a bit easier for me.
How long have you had your controller?
It's been a while, probably a couple years.
Nice.
It's also a third-party controller, so I think it started out being pretty mushy.
Right. So now it's time for Dungeon 2, right? Because we just completed Dungeon 1.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Oh yeah, that's true. And then we're gonna follow it up with Dungeon 5 because that's how math works.
Nice report.
Swamp Palace is made a lot easier by the fact that we've already done most of it. In no major glitches, you normally have to go to the left side and pick up the big key, and then run back over and get the hook shot. But Requiem used the Hera big key, actually the K-State big key, to get the hook shot early and doesn't have to do any of the right side or the left side of Swamp. You can just go straight to the back. There's also a trick in the back called Diver Down that will skip one of the rooms that you would normally do. The Diver Down trick is actually really similar to that Uncle Jump trick that he did earlier in the game, where you clip through a rail, but it's made a lot easier by using this Cane of Samaria to sort of shove Link into the rail. This Cane of Samaria is a really powerful item. This isn't even half of what you can do with Cane. There's a lot you can do with Cane that's banned in this category.
Right.
Oh yeah.
This is also
It
not the
definitely
last
is.
time we'll be seeing a Cane of Samaria glitch in this run. There's another one coming up in the next dungeon.
Yeah, it turns out being able to create a block in front of you with this game's physics does a lot of things for you, and some of them not even what you might think it would be for. Yeah, Cane of Samaria is definitely my most favorite item, especially after we found the applications for it in Basement Clip. That's not what I'm supposed to do, but I guess that guy's dead now.
Yeah, you can use Cane of Samaria to kill enemies. But you can also use it to squish Link into that railing.
It's a pretty minor time save. I believe it saves just over 10 seconds. I'm not sure. Do you guys know what it actually saves?
No.
Something like that. Yeah, I'm not surprised if it's just 7.
Yeah. Now,
Way.
we skipped the entirety of the left side, making Swamp so much more bearable. It's so much easier than NMG. Now we just have the boss. Oh, that's not good.
Yeah. So we missed the 0 cycle here. That's okay. So we'll see a sort of hurricane attack. We'll keep going though.
Zero Cycle requires some hitting a lot of buttons at the same time and doing it in a rhythm and positioning yourself properly to get the right puffs in the right order. It's a very difficult trick. It saves 6 seconds on the boss fight. If you do it normally, you can just hook them towards you and slash, and it's much easier. You're not supposed to have Tempered Sword in this dungeon, so the boss was balanced around that.
Yeah. Having Tempered makes it so much faster. Another crystal cutscene. This is the longest crystal cutscene in the game, so I guess actually if you have anything you'd like to plug or read out. now's a really good chance.
Perfect, because we just got in a donation of $20 from Etchy saying link passed. I don't know who Etchy is, but thank you so much. I'm sure you're a great guy. And I just want to remind everyone that we're raising money here at Rejects and Friends Cold Sweat 2025 for the Planned Parenthood Federation of America. Planned Parenthood works to protect and expand access to sexual and reproductive health care and education. They also provide access to safe birth control in whatever form that may be. Please consider donating to help Planned Parenthood show up for patients. You can do so by typing !donate in the chat.
They're coming up on the second mirror wrap. They'll start with an out-of-bounds clip through the corner. And looks like we're doing a trick, a more recent version of the trick where you hop very high. It's very important that Requiem doesn't get too close to that broken transition, or else the game will hard lock and we'll lose all of Swamp Palace.
Yeah, this is my most favorite dungeon in the game. It's a lot of really flashy tricks back to back to back.
I agree. It's just glitch after glitch.
Yeah.
And it's different from NMG. Like, you go a completely different route.
That was Spaces wrap, if I'm not mistaken.
It was.
I wasn't sure if you were going to do the Requiem wrap.
Oh no, I've given up on that. It loses too much time.
Is that the one where you go above the hard lock transition?
Yeah.
It's a little bit more safe, but it's not that hard to transition low. Like, you can transition pretty low and be fine. You have like almost a whole tile to transition before you're too high or too low.
And there's the other Samaria glitch where you just use the Samaria to walk straight past a wall.
Yeah, we're taking advantage of the fact that the game still treats Link as if he's in the door, and when Link is in the door, he can only move in two directions, in and out of the door, no matter what D-pad direction is held. So, using the Cane of Samaria, which is perfectly placed, Link will continue to be in that door state for longer than normal, and will ignore collision while in that state and go through the rail. You can get a mail and armor upgrade in this route pretty easily if you want, but this is also the third to last dungeon in the game. By the time you're here, you probably don't need it.
Yeah.
All right, Cold Stairs coming up. One of the hardest bosses. At least it packs a punch, and we need to do the script right. Otherwise, it gets really out of control.
Yeah, nobody wants a Cold Stair party. Oh, a couple more hits.
I think
on
we'll
these
be
guys.
okay. Ideally, you get a double spin at the top.
Yeah.
And fight very
but-
quickly.
I only got a double spin on one of the buffs, and the other two got a single spin, so had to do a little bit of cleanup. Yeah, those eyeballs, they look harmless, they look like cotton candy, but each of them does 4 hearts of damage. The falling ice does 2 hearts of damage, so ideally you kill it at the very top of the screen immediately. Fortunately, I was a bit low on my first spin, and so I wanted to play it a bit safer, and so my second spin, I did get it off, but it wasn't close enough to the puffs to hit all of them.
You also normally have more health going into this fight in restricted major glitches than in NMG, because you don't do the bomb jump and take the intentional damage to the spike, and you're also doing it later, so you have more total hearts. This is the last heart you get in the run. So 14 hearts is what you finish on in any speedrun of this game that isn't 100%, or skipping Sanctuary Heart that's doing all the dungeons.
And we've collected all 7 crystals. Does that mean we're going to open Ganon's Tower now?
You could say that.
Define open.
Open
I'm gonna talk to
means
the old man for safety.
Open means we get in front of the dungeon, and the power of the 7 maidens allow us to open the entrance.
We are going to go into the entrance by the power of diagonal walls.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
That's
we're gonna do
right.
something similar to what we saw in the Meyer split, but instead we're gonna come over here, stand in a specific spot, and we're inside Ganon's Tower. It's that simple. If you're looking at that and you're wondering, what am I doing? Like, how am I clipping through? It is as simple as getting hook speed, which is pressing A and Y on the same frame, and then just walking left. Oh, you did.
Oh my gosh. Can't do that. I was going to say during your Turtle Rock climb, you use a method that I don't see very often, but we see runners like Yuzuhara do it, where you have a sword out hook speed, which is the same tech you use to GT clip, and you buffered your movement with hook, which is pretty cool. I forgot about that thing.
Yeah, that's something that most people don't do, but like bonking against the bottom wall before entering Turtle Rock, it just sets you up in the right position for the teleport. Getting on a teleport pixel is like, it's a very specific pixel. It's not free. You can't clip into the wall anywhere. And so having cool setups like that makes it pretty neat.
We have Ganna's Tower, which has a ton of technical rooms, and is one of the most fun dungeons in the game if you like challenge. So that's where we are.
Yeah, normally I wouldn't... If you talk to the old man, he gives you a refill. You normally start the split with 8 hearts, and then talking to him gives you the extra +6. I normally don't get that. But my last attempt actually died in this dungeon, so I decided to be a bit safer.
And not only that, but there's another dungeon after this, because this is all dungeons, and there's still a dungeon we haven't done yet. And you exit this tower with the health you have and don't get a refill like you would from a crystal or pendant dungeon, which means you enter that dungeon with the health that you end this one with. And it's possible to die there too, even if it's not as difficult a dungeon.
True.
Ganna's Tower features refights of all of the Light World bosses, and so that was the first one. There's always some change to each one of them, and the change there was that that boss was on ice. Which casually is really annoying, but we always have a strat for that. Just do it well, and you don't have to worry. Coming up upstairs, and we have a whole bunch of rooms here that we... Well, I guess I'm showcasing this strat, but normally if we're here with 8 hearts, we do what we call the heart neutral strat, which loses a bit of time, but keeps us on the same health.
Then the Mimics rooms, these guys follow your movement, and it is surprisingly difficult to get them done correctly.
They're very sensitive to your movement, and if you go down too far, for example, in the first room, you can clink the spike and lose your sword out. This room is also sensitive to your movement, because you want to time it perfectly so that you miss the spikes coming down. If your timing is off, you will get hit by a spike. Now, this room has an RNG read that you can use to dash cleanly through the cannonballs. Looks like he got the first part and then tanked a hit, which is usually fine to do.
Now we have the 5 gauntlet rooms. And we'll be going through rooms, killing enemies. There's a lot of RNG.
This is a good test of your combat skills. There isn't really much to it besides learning how to read the RNGs and how to move cleanly and, react to enemies. It takes a lot of practice.
Not the best of gauntlets, but we got through.
Yeah. And on to land mode 2. Now we have a shooter, but otherwise it's the same fight.
Just seeing that you gave up on that second one.
Yeah, I tend to not go for it if it's like not directly in my path. It's better to always kill the third landmo, because that will lose the most time if you miss. But yeah, you're right. If I had stayed in the same position, I could have gotten that guy.
The top of the tower is pretty straightforward if you learn the tricks. Like, these Wizard's rooms look pretty impressive, but they're actually just move to a spot, place Samari, and press Y. The torches room coming up has a little bit more technicality to it. There's ways you can do it that are easy, but you can also save time by having very clean movement. Cutting these corners without falling is really difficult.
Is now a good time to jump in?
Yeah.
Cool. I have 2 donations here. One from Sakaro, $25, saying, Link fast. I tried to say it like the arrangement from a variety pack before this, but thank you so much for that, Sakaro. Really appreciate it. And then, of course, I have an earlier donation from Liz the Wizard saying, I really want to see the robot cat and a poster raffle entry. I'm literally cold and sweating from how much I'm excited about this event. Thank you for the $39.75, Liz. And yes, I misspoke. Sorry. Variety Pack did not make it, but Will the Beast did. Thank you so much. But yeah, again, last chance for the $20 minimization raffle for the Link to the Past poster by Isaiah C. Animation. So get those in before the end of the run, which is going to come up very fast because Rec is very fast.
We're running out of dungeons very quickly.
Yeah.
Nice triple. This is one of the most technical fights in the game. This is one where people will sink hours into practicing and still be bad at it. But at the end of this fight, there is one last out of bounds clip that you can do optionally to save a little bit of time on the ending cutscene. So if he can successfully clip out of this wall and then dash to the right, he could get that bat off screen faster, but it looks like he didn't quite make it.
Yeah, it is a little precise, and it looks like I didn't hold a specific direction out of my dash soon enough. It's just a little bit of time save. You despawn the bat faster, save around like 6 seconds if you do it really well. But as our commentator said, we do have one more dungeon, and that dungeon is right here. It's Aghanim's Tower. We just beat Aghanim 2. Now we're gonna go beat Aghanim 1. And we are super overpowered for this dungeon. We have Tempered Sword, a whole bunch of items we shouldn't have. Most of these enemies just die in a single slash. And this dungeon becomes basically a cakewalk.
It is much easier, but still just as annoying.
That is true.
Some enemies still like to hit us, regardless.
And of course, the final boss of this dungeon, you can't control the speed of that boss. Well, you can a little bit, but it is very RNG heavy boss where he'll either attack you with an orange ball, which you can damage him with, or with the blue ball, which you can't damage him with. And we don't have any control over how many blue balls he fires.
Yeah. Each blue ball loses 6 seconds, with the 3rd, 7th, 11th, and 15th losing an additional... That's the NMG strat. That's fine.
Yeah, we could
I had
just
temper
slash
there.
it.
Yeah, but that's fine. Couple of really tight rooms here now that you have the Fire Rod. We want to stay on the Fire Rod because that's the item we use in Ganon, so we don't have to do another menu.
This room is very difficult, and even though we're overpowered, because we're not on the hookshot or the boomerang, you have to do the room differently, and you have to read RNG differently.
That was a really nice fire rod strat.
Optionally, you can be on the hookshot and lose a little bit of time. It's one of those things that people will have a preference for. It's viable to be on hookshot here.
Yeah. That Fire Rod strat it's particularly difficult when the guard comes left and right, but thankfully I was able to... That's why I saved a single Fire Rod shot there. That last Fire Rod shot is dedicated to that guy if he decides to get in my way. But yeah, we're out of magic. We do need magic for Ganon, but thankfully beating Aghanim gives us a full magic and full health refill, making this category much easier in terms of fighting Ganon. Unlike most no major glitch categories where you fight him right after Ganon's tower with no health refill. Oh, that is the no magic prompt.
Watch your magic meter.
I guess we can control the speed of the Aga fight by not trying to use magic.
Yeah, we've already gotten 2 blue balls. Each blue ball is a 50-50. The most common pattern is getting 3 blue balls, but you could get unlucky. What is it, like a 0.001% chance to get 15 or something like that?
Like that.
We won't be getting 15. We've already gotten multiple energy balls.
I've seen one.
I think that one's 4.
Yeah, that's 4.
Oh,
This
that's
category
5.
is special because you get all the heaviest RNG at the very end of the game when it's too late to reset. NMG
Yeah,
does
how
this
much
as
of
its
your-
like 4th or 5th dungeon, so you can reset and only lose 30 minutes of your life.
There's nothing to do during the lightning cycle, so I like to try clipping outside. You can clip outside with some specific movement here.
Would you get lag there if you were on not on SNES Classic?
I think you still do. Okay. Alright, there was only 6. If he'd given me a 7th blue ball, that would have been an additional lightning cycle. Which is still pretty unlucky. It's still a pretty... I feel like it's single-digit percentage chance to get 6 blue balls. But yeah, nothing in my control. Maybe if I did some specific inputs. Maybe if I pulled open the no magic menu 3 more times, it would have given me 0. Who knows?
Yeah, you basically get different RNG if you breathe differently.
Pretty much. RNG advances every frame, so there's no way to control it outside of a task setting. Alright, we're down to the final boss. All dungeons are defeated. We just need to collect the Triforce now. And there's only this big pig in the way.
Ganon doesn't actually check if you've done all the dungeons, so it's up to the runner to ensure that they have done so, and also the leaderboard verifier.
True, you could just beat GT and then come down to Ganon. Here's another RNG part.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ganon can just warp any number of times. It gets, again, a 50-50 chance of whether he stops or he warps. So all the RNG at the end.
There's technically
almost
no
like-
ceiling to how many times he can warp. Unlike the 15 blue ball max, Ganon could, in theory, just warp indefinitely.
But unlike the Aghanim 1 fight, the Ganon fight is really fun. And there's so much to optimize and learn.
Please, Ganon.
Except for this part.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in the 4th phase, which is right now. After this text box.
The fact that he turned blue there is also more or less outside of Requiem's control. You can set up an early silverless spin there if Ganon actually does warp somewhere, but if he doesn't warp, then he'll just turn blue. But that's okay, because when he turns blue, it sets up for more spins later on. Like, it sets up the timing to get an early triple.
Oh,
Oops.
that wasn't right.
That one was in control.
I was actually
Bit
surprised.
early. Alright, gonna have to wait here because of that blue Ganon. That's fine. We have a lot of magic to spare.
And you can switch to the lamp if you don't. But you
That's
shouldn't
true.
have to.
Alright, that's the last boss. Time is coming up. Time is as soon as the transition starts for entering the Triforce room.
GG.
GG.
And time. Thanks to the GGs. That was a pretty good run. There were no major disasters all around. I did sacrifice a bunch of time trying to get Uncle Jump, but eventually it didn't end up working, which is kind of sad.
There were no hard locks, which is always good. No deaths.
That is true. But yeah, I think we did meet the incentive for showing all the hard locks and soft locks in this run, right? So
We sure
I
did.
guess I should go ahead and showcase that. I have a bunch of SNES Classic saves that I do this on, that I have saved for this purpose. I'm just going to be using those to showcase this. Unfortunately, we only have 4 saves, so I have to like close the tool and open it to reload new saves, but shouldn't take too much time. So to start
here's a
off
good
with,
one. I'm excited.
yeah, this is the first place you can hardlock in the game, and most people don't hit this. So when they do, I guess they get really surprised. This is the start of Death Mountain Ascent at the very beginning of the game. Right here, you're supposed to hop off, and you could get something like this, where Link hops off, and he doesn't look like he hopped correctly. If I hold up here, oh, I guess it's still fine. Essentially, you can get stuck in this transition, and if you hit it incorrectly, sometimes you have that kind of thing happen, where the screen scrolls and you get an auto walk, but I guess I can just show this trick from the other side. So let's do that and that. While I'm here, if I decide to hold up, and I hit this transition accidentally, which some runners have done, and I've seen happen in a race just a couple months ago, this is an infinite scroll. This isn't a crash. The game is trying its hardest to try to figure out what it means with us hitting the transition from the other side, and it's infinitely scrolling, trying to resolve the transition. Unfortunately for us, and for the game, it never succeeds. I cannot press select, I cannot press start. You can see my input display above. Pressing any of the buttons does nothing. The only option we have is to reset. But for a short while, you can enjoy Link running really, really, really fast. I guess showcasing like a really weird soft log you don't see. There's a clip you do here to get to Hyrule Castle right after the split, and it's only like a 4-pixel window that you can clip in to do this trick. If you are any lower and you accidentally clip through, you end up, you don't have flippers, but you activate a transition even if you don't hold anything, and you are now stuck in the water below the screen. Fortunately, this is not a hard lock, so all you have to do is save and quit. But that is a really dumb way to trap yourself. It is not that much time lost.
On accident?
I did, yeah. I was like, surely there's a way to soft lock here, and there is.
So you found it on purpose.
Oh yeah, that's true. Another really dumb soft lock, which we didn't mention during the run. When you're trying to enter Tower of Hera, you clip through this wall and you land somewhere that you can't see. The stairs are actually to my left, where Link is looking. But if you hold left, you actually get pushed to the right because of how collision works, and now you're stuck. Fortunately, just like the previous one, this soft lock isn't that much time. You just save and quit, and you retry, but still worth mentioning.
And a fun fact about Hera is there are ledges on the places on the dungeon that look like they have ledges. So there are certain spots you can jump into where you can just hop off of the building.
Yeah. Showcasing another hard lock. Now we're on the way to Thieves Town, and we do a clip here, and this was mentioned during the run, where we jump off. Our goal is to transition downwards, but if you hold down, collision here actually pushes Link upwards, and we hit another transition from the opposite direction, and we get yet another infinite scroll. It so turns out that our position right there is perfect, such that we cannot hold up, we can't hold down, but if we dash, we cross the transition entirely, and now we're safe to hold down and not trigger a hard lock.
Yeah, that's one of the scariest moments of all dungeons, like across time. It's just a very common trick that's been used in a lot of routes of this speedrun.
The thing that makes it scary is that the trick is actually really easy to do, and it's really easy to mess up and be too fast pulling up. Like, if you don't wait for Link to land before you start your dash, you will just move instead of dash.
Yeah. So showcasing what we talked about earlier, and I'm going to use rewind for this bit because it's actually pretty hard to hit. So the way this strat works, the fastest version of the strat, rather than grabbing the frog immediately, we sort of lift up this rock and mirror, and that will immediately take us into the library. And our goal is to just grab the frog on the way out. If you just hold A out of the mirror transition, you can talk to the frog if you hold A at a specific point. I'm going to skip the book here, but if you hit A on a specific frame, it's frame perfect, something weird will happen. And this is a rewind recording because it took me a couple tries to hit this, and I didn't want to try to grind for it. You'll notice that Link teleports to the bottom of the screen. Now, if you know what's going on, then you'll know to hold select after this text, and that will pull up the select menu, and you can safely save and quit. But if you don't know what's going on, and you don't hold select, the game is now hard locked. There is nothing I can do. I can try to press start, I can try to press select, I can mash a whole bunch of buttons, but there's nothing I can do. You lose all of your progress, which at this point I guess is grabbing the hookshot and beating Thieves Town. So you have to do all of that over again, which is a large amount of time. I believe that's probably like another 6-7 minutes, maybe even 8 minutes. So I opt for another strat which doesn't even do this. I opt for a safer strat which only loses 40 frames or so. This is one of the crazier. I'm not sure what causes this. It'd be nice if there was like a Link to the Past scientist in the chat who could tell us. Going to another one that I don't fully understand. This is a soft lock, not a hard lock, but Here, when you clip into the pot like this, your first instinct would be, we need to fall down that hole above us. So you might just think you're going to hold up. That's actually not the case. You have to hold left to center Link and then hold up to walk in. What happens if you just hold up directly? Link just gets stuck in place. This is another thing that I don't understand. Weapons don't work, you can't move, you can press start, and you can save and quit, but you can't say use the mirror or use any other items. And this is another thing that I don't understand. And I was hoping if Tex or Momo had an explanation for this.
I feel like it just has something to do with the fact that Link is falling, and you can't use items while falling, but you can save and quit.
I see.
Holes are weird, and this hole is not like doing its thing correctly for some reason. I don't know why that is.
Yeah. You can do this in other places too. Oh, that's pretty interesting. I guess you can just get stuck like this.
It's possible, if you remember in the run when he tried to dash into Moldorm's arena and Moldorm kicked him out, it's possible for Moldorm to kick you out at a diagonal that puts you in the wall near the pit and gives you the same soft lock, which is really unlucky.
Yeah, and in both cases, your only option is to save and quit and try again. Today's not your day. Moving on to another, I guess, weird thing. This is on the way to Mire. This is just before the Mire super jump, where we jump down twice through this really long section. So here you're supposed to transition left, but there are cases where you can get stuck here on the wall and you need to move down a little bit before you transition. If you hold down too long, or if you're not paying attention and you've just been holding down the whole time, Link will actually do a map prep, and we are now in Skullwoods. He does a nice auto walk, and we are stuck in these trees. This isn't anything special. It is a soft lock. You can save and quit. There's no risk of hard locking here. But if you wanted to explore in the practice hack, you can turn out of bounds mode on. Moving right and moving down will immediately soft lock or hard lock with an infinite scroll. Actually, no, it's just a mosaic transition that never resolves. Moving left lets you go infinitely, but moving up is my favorite. You open these doors a lot of times. I don't know what those doors are. And eventually you hit a transition that just is a mosaic transition that never resolves. But yeah, that whole area is super weird. A couple months ago, there were some other people who were researching that. And I'm not sure what the reason for that is. Just something cool that I thought I'd show off. Another sort of interesting thing is if you try to do the same thing after the screen transition, it's just going to result in a infinite scroll. But this one is different in that the game will try to keep scrolling, but now it's just completely frozen. It's frozen to the point where usually you can use the practice hack presets and like reset your position. Like the practice hack will still work, but now even the practice hack isn't working. There is nothing that works. This is a true crash, which is pretty rare for this game. And this is something that I found by accident while trying to test these things out. It's pretty interesting. Another thing that I'm not sure why it happens.
Yeah, some places where you map wrap, you can move in certain directions, and some places will just straight crash your game. It's very weird.
There's some really bizarre behavior when you try to go south of the Dark World here, which we've been calling Tarso Land.
I see.
He showcased some strange sprites.
Alright, moving on. This is just a funny one. I've been going in chronological order of the speedrun. I'm just breaking that here to just show a really stupid one. This is Turtle Rock, when normally the next thing would be, I guess, Ice Rod Cave and Palace of Darkness. This is just a really stupid soft lock. Teleports, as I said, are very precise. And this is the position you want to be in to teleport downwards. But if I was one scroll to the left and I didn't my position correctly, and I decided to teleport, that puts me up. And this is a soft lock. You are stuck in the wall with nothing to do except save and quit and blame yourself for going too fast.
I've been there.
Alright, gonna load the next set of saves, and these ones are the most exciting because they're probably among my most favorite. They're some of the craziest ones. Alright, so one of them probably spoiled it a bit, but the Ice Rock Cave area is fairly really stress-inducing. You have to clip into this along this second bump. If you go too low, this is just a really stupid soft lock. You're just stuck in the wall. There's nothing to do. So let me get myself unstuck really quick and try to clip through the right bump. Alright, now that we're here, like Chex said, if we can move up, left, and down, but if at any point we hit right, that's an infinite scroll hardlock. The transition is moving with us as we move left, and there's nothing we can do. This is infinite. We lose all of our progress from Hera, Mire, and Desert, which is like close to 10 minutes. But yeah, that's not the only issue with that screen. You might think, oh, just don't hold right. There are some problems. Your initial thought might be, okay, I'm going to dash starting here to the left because we need to go left, and this looks like an optimal dash, right? We're minimizing our movement. That is pretty dangerous, though. Slopes have very weird physics, and it's easier to showcase this with walking rather than dashing. But right now, if you were paying attention, I've sort of really clipped into this cliff, and the same thing can happen while dashing. And when I hold left again, the slope is going to kick me up and to the right, and turns out that's also a hard lock. You can't do anything about this. This will never resolve, and so it's another problem. And in fact, the exact same... Oh, we skipped ahead there. Same thing can happen with the transition here. I try to be really careful and enter normally so I can enter the cave, but if for some reason I don't do that and I overshoot, then when you go up, it's going to nudge you to the right. But this one is special, where in some cases it can resolve, and I'm not sure why that happens. This one is a recording that I had of me doing it earlier today, which did resolve. And while we're here, you can't move, you can save and quit. If you turn out of bounds mode on, there's nothing interesting to see. It's just like the Skullwoods screen that we saw earlier, where you can move around and then you hit a mosaic transition. But sometimes if you get really lucky and God is smiling upon you, you can save your 10 minutes of progress and save and quit, and just lose only 2 minutes. I'm not sure if you guys know why this sometimes resolves.
I have no idea.
No
I'm
idea.
gonna guess subpixels.
I don't understand these hard locks very well.
But it's pretty funny to see pieces of both the Lore's domain screen and Master Sword pedestals screen.
But yeah, here's probably my most favorite soft lock in the game. We're in our first visit of Palace of Darkness, trying to do a basement clip. We want to teleport upwards. That is our goal. But there are some other places where you can teleport. Our first step once we get into the wall is to buffer 1 frame upright, and hold down right after this. But it so turns out that this position is a teleport position, not upwards, but downwards. If I accidentally hold down right here instead of down, I will teleport down, and you might be wondering, oh, what dungeon are you going to go into now? And the unfortunate answer is there is no dungeon here. There is just an empty room. We are in Glitch Jail, and there's nothing for us to do here. If you were thinking about how all of these dungeons are on the same map, and you were wondering how Nintendo pieced all of these dungeons beautifully together, they didn't. They cheated. They put a lot of these empty rooms in place. And so in a lot of places where you could potentially clip, you might end up in a room like this, or even worse. There are some places that just crash your game. One room in specific. If this was inside, if we had reloaded the dungeon, we could use the mirror. But because this is cave state, we can't do that either. We have to save and quit. I guess another one, we mentioned this during the stream, that this is the second revisit, or the third revisit to Palace of Darkness, where we want to reload the dungeon here. If you notice we go outside, you're hearing Light World music, and that's because we're in the fake Dark World. We want to hit the mirror and go into real Dark World so that when we beat Helmasaur, we are guaranteed to get the prize. But what if we don't do that? What if we don't reload? And this has happened to a lot of runners. A lot of runners forget to reload the dungeon, and no one in their chat reminds them either. So they go on their merry way all the way to the back, perhaps even beating the dungeon normally. I'm gonna turn on auto bounds mode so I can just skip through all of this, get to the back really fast. Once you go in, you're gonna find Helmasaur there, so you still won't be any the wiser that you forgot to fix fake Dark World.
Yeah, we took the scenic route.
Oh yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. Alright, I'm gonna give myself silvers here to make this kill faster. And I'm just going to... Oh, I guess I can menu to mirror. So that's gonna kill the boss. You wouldn't menu to mirror if you still don't know what's going on, but you might think, after this, you're gonna see that I'm gonna collect the heart container, and the crystal doesn't spawn. This is because the game thinks we're in the light world, and there's a conflict between this dungeon and Desert Palace. It sees that we've collected the Desert Palace pendant, and like, oh, well, I'm not going to spawn a crystal, you've already collected it. And after a boss explosion, you cannot press start, you cannot press select, you cannot use items, so the mirror does not work. And if you were to instead say, okay, well, let me try to damage myself down instead. I guess I need to kill the boss first. If you want to damage yourself down instead, the spikes in the back don't work, and even though you can place bombs, the bombs don't work either. They just give you knockback. Oh, well, I guess I need to wait for the boss to finish dying. Actually, I'm curious. Can I still take damage? Oh, I can. So I guess that is one way. If you menu to bombs before collecting the heart, then that would just reload, and you'd go back to your previous save in the practice hack, or you would go back to the beginning of the dungeon. I believe once you collect the heart container, you can no longer take damage from your bombs either.
Yeah,
And we can-
collecting the heart is what sets the flag saying the boss has been defeated.
Yeah. And now if
Yeah.
I try to place bombs down, it's just going to give me knockback. There's nothing for
What
me to
about
do
the
here.
spikes?
The spikes also don't work. The spikes, you can hug them as much as you want, but they're not going to kill you. This is an unfortunate hard lock. You have to reset and then retry the whole dungeon from the start. Fortunately, you just saved and quit, so it's not that bad. We're just coming up on our last few things here, which these ones are also pretty silly. That was from the previous section, so we can just delete that. We have a whole set of them with the Ice Palace map wrap. You've noticed that runners try to be very low when they clip here, and the reason is because all of us are terrified. If you are a bit too high, you'll notice that sometimes you won't get a quick hop, and you might think, oh, okay, I can move down. Well, it turns out you're actually in a transition. So if I hit down, that's another infinite soft lock. But that's not the only place where you have that issue. Even if you do everything...
If you
Sorry,
see
go ahead.
Link's cap in the top of the screen, that's bad.
Yeah. But even if you do everything correctly, the transition to the right to start the scroll, it has a fairly big window. There's this position, this is the lowest position, and then you can go all the way up to EO4 if you're looking at the coordinates up there. Any higher than this, if I go even 1 pixel higher, that's an infinite scroll. It's a hard lock. This screen scroll to Ice Palace only saves a minuscule amount of time. I want to say I've heard it saves only 8 seconds to saving and quitting and just swimming to Ice Palace, but it does look cool, and it is fast, so we still do it. And every once in a while, you'll have a runner get this far in the run, basically in the home stretch, and have to reset to this trick.
Yeah, the two mirror wraps in this speedrun, Ice Palace and T-Rock, are pretty iconic, and people tend to do them.
This one's another weird one. You have a very limited set of positions to be. I believe there's only like 2 positions you can stand in to clip to GT above, Ganon's Tower. If you're standing somewhere else and you try to clip through, you get sent elsewhere. And some transitions that you might go through here, sometimes you get stuck, sometimes you just need to find your way back down and you can retry. But your best bet is usually just saving and quitting so that you don't accidentally trigger a transition that's going to hard lock. And even if you do successfully get to the top of Ganon's Tower, just like Tower of Hera, the stairs are to my left, but if I hold left, I'm now stuck. I have a little place here to walk. Can't do anything with it though. I can jump around, and then I can retry, I guess. This is something that I wasn't going to showcase, but I guess now we're here with a bush in our hands. If you pick up a bush with the camera desynced, Link just looks like he's losing his mind. There's no way to fix this except for entering a transition, which thankfully there's one right there. If you try to go down, you actually can't use your sword or items, so clipping becomes much harder. We're pretending to do SRing. So it's true. And now for the final one. This is a trick that I wasn't able to showcase during the run, but we did mention this. Let me go ahead and get rid of Aghanim here so he doesn't mess with us and talk to us. So you can clip out of bounds here after Aghanim dies. I am lost. Let me try that again.
We need Aghanim here to put on the pressure.
Yeah, so now that we're outside, if Aghanim is dead and the bat is spawning, you can dash to the right, scroll him off screen, and that will immediately call the flute, the bird, to pick you up. Save up to 6 seconds. But in some cases, when he dies all the way to the far right, you have to go even further. And there is a risk that you will go too far and end up transitioning. And when that happens, you are now stuck. This is an ice palette screen with a beautiful palette. But unfortunately, there's no escape. There's no way for you to go back. There's no way to trigger the back cutscene from here. The only thing for you to do is to either save and quit or use the mirror. This is the last possible soft lock, and it's probably the most embarrassing soft lock, because it's only a few set of people who do that clip. Most people just opt to lose the 6 seconds. And if you get too greedy with it, then this is your punishment. But yeah, it was kind of fun putting these together and like showcasing all the hard locks. There was a lot more than I anticipated there would be. Like each split has like 1 or 2 hard locks or soft locks that can lose a ton of time, some of them losing up to 10 minutes in your speedrun. So if it's a race or marathon and you need to continue, then that's a huge blow to your run. But yeah, just a couple shoutouts I want to give while I'm here. Huge shoutouts to the Link to the Past community. If you found this interesting and you'd like to learn this game, do join the Discord. We have a ton of resources, a ton of helpful people who can help you out. I personally will probably continue grinding this game. You can find my channel linked in the title if you want to see more of this. Check some Mama. Do you guys want to shout out any events that you're in, or any of your own channels?
No, GG's on the run though, and you know, great job avoiding all 100 hard locks in the game.
Yeah, that's all. I would like to shout out Requiem, who humbly didn't mention that he invented a lot of the tech for making this route safer, including using the King of Samaria in the basement clip.
Yeah, that was a pretty recent discovery. In when we were at Speed Gaming Live, I told Chex, I'm sure the King of Samaria does something there, and I tried it out that night, and sure enough, it did a lot of things in that spot. But yeah, if nothing else, I'd like to hand it back to Etchy to close us out for the run.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that run, Requiem of Spirit. That's going to be it for me as your host. Again, I have been Etchy. I had an amazing time watching these runs and hanging out with you all this evening. But don't fret, we still got a whole other day of RAF tomorrow with plenty of cool runs. So I'm sure I'll see you then. And before we sign off for the evening, I'm going to pass it back to